welcome. Thank you so much for joining this Circular Economy, Circular Cities Declaration webinar. So this is the 11th webinar that we are organizing within the CCD. And the topic of today's webinar is going to be the public transport and urban mobility, so how circularity is applied to this sector. So before we start, a few housekeeping rules. It would be great if you managed to include your organization in the name. So just FYI, also this webinar is going to be recorded, and both the recording and the slides will be available afterwards. Please make sure that you keep your microphone muted while others are speaking, and feel free to write some questions for the speakers in the chat. You can also write to my colleague Erika for any technical support. All right, so we have a packed agenda for today, so I'm going to be running through it. We first will do, as usual, the Circular Cities Declaration updates, and then I will pass the floor to Laura Lopez from Rupert Consult, which will provide an introduction to circular economy applied to the transport sector and the circularity compass that they have developed within their project C4C. Then we'll hear some experiences from cities, signatories and non-signatories. We'll have Mitya from the municipality of Maribor presenting their case into circular energy management for public transport. Then Adam Nemeth from the municipality of Szeged in Hungary will present their case of the circular fix for trams and trolley buses. And then we'll jump to Ireland, specifically Fingal County, where Stephen McKean will present their program for refurbished bicycles for teens. Then, as usual, we try to keep these webinars as interactive as possible for the signatories. So we will have a breakout discussion where you will have the chance of talking to the speakers and asking more specific questions, or sharing your experience. And we will be divided in 3 breakout rooms. The first one is going to be on circular energy management. The second one on extending the life of public transport vehicles and infrastructure, and the third one more on active travel and the circular economy. Then we will wrap up the last 5 minutes just having an overview of what is upcoming in terms of opportunities and events that might be interesting for you as cities and regions committed to circular economy, and we'll finish at 3:30 CET. So without further ado, just to give you a short update, the Circular City Declaration continues to grow. We had our last webinar in November, and from then we had one new signatory, which is the city of Utrecht in the Netherlands. And we also have an update for which now I will pass briefly the floor to my colleague Nestor regarding the upcoming CCD report. Nestor, to you.
Thank you, Chiara. As you know, one of the main activities of this community of the Circular Cities Declaration is the reporting. So this is an exercise we do every 2 years. We as a CCD, we ask signatories to provide us with updates on the activities, initiatives, strategies that they are implementing in the territories, and then we analyze those actions, those activities on that reporting, and we put together a report. We are now just launching the report very soon, which will have a general section in looking at the progress made by every city, and then we will have a deep dive, in this case, looking at the social impact of all these actions. And you will have more news in the coming weeks. We will open the reporting period in March. And the good news is that you will receive, each of you, a tailored form per signatory, and you will also receive a complete information pack, and also some Q&A sessions will be hosted to support you. As I was mentioning, you will receive more information in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to receiving many reports from you. Back to you, Chiara.
Many thanks, Nestor, for this update. All right, so without further ado, we'll jump now into the presentations for this webinar. As I said, Laura Lopez from Rupert Consult will provide this introductory presentation, and then we'll hear from 3 specific cities' experiences. So Laura, I will pass now the floor to you, and you can share your screen for the slides. Sorry, Laura, you're muted.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Give me just a sec. I will share my screen. And I think you can see the full screen now, right?
Yes, we can.
Super. Okay. So yeah, thank you again. Very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be presenting the work that we have done in the CE4C project to the Circular Cities Declaration Group. As Chiara said, my name is Laura Lopez. I work for Rupre Consult in Cologne, Germany. It's a consultancy company. But also I represent Trolley Motion, which is another partner in the CE4C project. And in this project, I have particularly been involved in the development or sort of fleshing out what circular economy means in public transport, how it can be applied. And for that, we have developed the Circularity Compass, which is a tool to enhance the advancement of circular economy in public transport. So I will start with a little bit of the background with the basics and the bigger picture. So basically here it's good to refer to the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, which points out a very critical problem that we have, which is that we only have one planet, yet by 2050 we will be consuming as we will have 3 planets. So this really calls for a complete change or reshuffling the consumption and production patterns that we have in the last decades, which in industrialized nations especially had meant rapid economic growth in the energy industry, agriculture, construction, and of course transport sector through a linear economy model, which means that we take resources from the ground, from different sources, we use them, and we are using them as shorter as possible, especially these days, and we throw them away. And this is really creating a lot of waste, a lot of CO2 emissions, a lot of externalities that we need to take into account because, as I said, we only have one planet, and this is really not a sustainable way of keeping the balance in the planet. Something that we have seen in this as part of this trend is the triple crisis that we are living today, which is the loss of biodiversity, the climate change, and the pollution. So sometimes we only don't think about CO2 emissions, but it's really more than that. So for example, the impact in the air, the environment, the ecosystems are also in pollution. Okay, what does this mean in road transport specifically? There is, of course, the impact that everyone who is involved in public transport knows. So road transport is responsible for a quarter of the CO2 emissions in Europe. And this sector is the only one that has a rising trend. Agriculture, energy, the other ones have a decreasing trend, but emissions from transport sector keep rising, and specifically the road transport, which accounts for 3/4 of the transport sector in general. So this is, of course, the direct emissions, so tailpipe emission as we call them, but of course the impact goes beyond CO2 emissions, and it also impacts the consumption in the transport sector impacts materials, impacts energy, and impacts natural resources. So for example, the transport sector is responsible for 1/3 of the demand of energy in general. So this is not a insignificant contribution. It also demands raw materials. So for example, a lot of steel for cars manufacturing, a lot of copper, and lately with the electrification trend that we are seeing, we see a lot of consumption, a lot of demand of critical raw materials such as lithium, cobalt, which are maybe at the moment not, or it's not that visible for us, the impact, but this will rise. And we are already seeing, for example, the implications, discussing the implication in terms of the ecosystems, especially overseas, in social work and social human rights, things like that. So clearly the impact goes beyond materials consumption, but also has some social implications. And the other thing is like the waste, at the other side of the change. So we are seeing that the waste part or the recycling part is really not efficient at the moment. So for example, only 20% of the primary steel is being recycled. So plastics are also very recycling in a very low trend, and this really applies to many materials. So most of the materials, in terms of critical raw materials, really at the moment the percentage is really minimum. So all this lithium and cobalt that we had previously talked. And for example, for concrete, which is massively used in transport infrastructure, for stations, for rails, for bridges, and so also the recycling trend is very low, and the CO2 emissions and energy use is very high. So basically what we want to say is clearly electrification, which is the main trend that we are focusing on and the cities are focusing on to tackle climate change at the moment. It's not a silver bullet. And this means that even with all cars electrified, 50 to 60% of the emissions in a EV will be embedded, so in materials, energy, and so on. And that's the reason why embedded emissions are becoming the next frontier in the battle against climate change. All right, so what we argue that we need to do is, in order to revert this trend, is really moving from a linear to circular vision. So here in the small square, you see the tunnel vision that we were discussing. So the tailpipe emissions that happen in the operational phase, but really we need to start thinking and we start acting in the life cycle change, let's say. So what happens at the beginning of the cycle, so in terms of lead manufacturing, in terms of materials production, in terms of materials extraction, and what happens at the end, and what role each of the transport stakeholders play. So for example, through procurement, what you can do to reduce the amount of materials that go into the vehicles, through procurement, what you can do to reduce fuel production from fossil fuels. And again, also at the end, through, again, procurement or even your own practices, what you can do to improve fleet scrapping, to do second life batteries, to improve the disposal of materials, to keep them longer, and so on. Okay, and so basically we say, or maybe you're thinking, or the transport stakeholders thinking, okay, well, this sounds great. Sorry, I was just going to a different slide in my own. Okay, so sorry. Why circular economy in public transport? So this basically the way that we see it and the way that we see it in the project is like public transport is already the most eco-friendly way of moving people in cities. As you can see here in one of the graphs, the amount of CO2 is the minimum compared to amount of passengers that public transport carries on a daily basis in a city. And the public transport has also been very innovative already. For example, in the uptake of electric vehicles, the transport sector has been at the forefront or adopting new technologies and new innovations. This means that in the transport sector, we are already seeing a reduction in the emissions in general and in the impact in climate change. So, for example, through the electrification, now that we're moving more into renewables for powering the vehicles. So basically what we are arguing is that a holistic circular economy approach can finish the job in terms of reducing really the amount of raw materials that we are using, extending the life cycle of the products, and so on. And of course, an impact in the public transport sector, where really public cities and regions have a lot of, let's say, agency, can trigger a ripple effect in the public transport, of course, but also in the transport sector as a whole, in the construction and buildings, in the industry, and in the energy sectors. And basically in the built environment of the cities, and also in cooperation with some other sectors, especially the private sector. So that's why we think it's really a great way to trigger changes, because it really has it could have a ripple effect in other areas. Okay, so now back to the slide where I was at. So basically in C4C, we said, okay, maybe this sounds good, but how really actors can start with this, let's say, adoption of circular economy in the public transport sector. And that's why we created and we are introducing the Circularity Compass, which is really an easy entry orientation tool to foster circularity throughout the entire public transport sector life cycle. So again, it's really about shifting from this tunnel vision to a more life cycle vision, and also understanding the different sectors or the different areas where you can have an impact. So that's why we have here the avoid, extend, transform cycle that we propose. And we propose that this could be applied in 3 dimensions in the transport sector, or 3 pillars as we call them. So in the fleets part, in the vehicles and batteries, and what kind of material consumption and operation we can detect there and we can improve. Same for the infrastructure area, and also for the energy that we are using for powering the whole operation, not only the vehicles. And of course, there is a cross-cutting aspect, as we call it in the Circularity Compass, which is the governance part. And this means all these really, let's say, soft or cross-cutting parts that really sustain and enable this change, which for us, or the way we describe the Circularity Compass is the funding and financing that is required, the multi-level policy, both at the national level and the local level, the strategies, the plans, the different things that need to be done, the data and indicators, of course, what you can measure, you cannot really change it and track progress, and the knowledge and the skills that this requires, because it really requires, for example, setting up a dedicated department, improving the skills in terms of refurbishment in-house, and so on. Okay, so I'm not gonna go into the details because later I will share a link with you. But basically, the Circularity Compass components, as I said, it has this life cycle structure. So we have avoid, extend, and transform. And the first component of it is really this infographic that you see here, which is like a guide that really helps you to understand, okay, what you can do at these different stages. And that's why we have these specific bubbles, which mention specific and concrete actions that you could take. And in this public transport circular framework, you can find the specific descriptions on these actions. And in other documents that we develop afterwards, you can also have specific examples and best practices on how this can be applied or has been already applied in other cities in the public transport sector, but even like we are drawing from cases from other sectors. The other component of the Circularity Compass is the self-assessment tool. So basically, this is a bit of a low entry or easy entry survey, because of course it can get very detailed and very sophisticated with life cycle assessments. But this is really for you to start thinking or start analyzing how your public transport system is, where is it standing in terms of circular economy adoption. So it has this, let's say, route that we can see here. So going from pre-self-assessment and then avoid, extend, and transform, which takes you to the all life cycle route, let's say. And at the end, based on the answers, you get a result giving you a bit of an idea, of course, subjective, because the assessment is subjective, or where are you standing, or what kind of things you can do to improve. So this is really more about sort of sparking the conversations, starting the dialogue with the stakeholders, and getting like a quick glance on the things that you need to take into account, and the things that you will need to dive a bit further to start implementing circular economy in public transport. So we think really this is a good way to start preparing your plans, your strategies, updating plans and strategies that you might have in the pipeline. Okay, so this is basically the self-assessment tool. Just quick screenshots. So here you can see the survey in one of the screenshots. So for example, we have used it, and also like we also converted the self-assessment tool in some workshop boards. So it's really flexible. You can use it as a survey. You can use it for interviews. You can use it, to collect information from other stakeholders, but also even for interactive dialogues. So the idea is really that you can pick and choose what it works for you to really start this dialogue and this discussion of possible measures that you can do. All right, and as I promised, and I will drop it in the chat in a moment, this is where you can find the Circularity Compass. So as part of the C4C, we developed the knowledge platform, and it has many resources, not only the Circularity Compass, but also best practices, the matchmaking forum, which is really, for example, if your city has anything on second-hand spare parts in the public transport sector, this is a place where you can offer it and see maybe if you can provide it to another transport operator system. All right, I think that's it from my side. And as I said, I will just drop the link in the chat. And yeah, if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Laura. This was excellent and such a great example of a practical tool that we hope it could serve useful to the signatories of the declaration. So please do let us know if you end up using it, how it is, and if you have any questions, as Laura was saying, feel free to write them in the chat. Then now we will move on to the city's best practices experience, and I will pass the floor to Mitja Klemencic from the municipality of Maribor in Slovenia, who will present their experience in the C4C project. Mitja,
Yes.
to you. Thanks.
Hello. So I will continue with Laura's, let's say, tool, focusing just on one small piece, mainly on the reusage of the batteries, which is part of the management circular strategy in Maribor. So within this circular compass, our focus was how to explore and how to reuse the end of life of batteries and how could this contribute to circularity in public transport. Of course, this is related to the overall aims of Maribor of electrification of the public transport. With the idea of, in Maribor started with this in already 2014, and the realization of first electric bus route was completed in 2023, so 9 years after the, let's say, first studies. Maribor is a small, medium city in regard to European terms, about 100,000 inhabitants, and we have currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines fully electrified, and our goal is to have more than 50% of electric buses till 2028, and till 2032, 80% of buses could be electric. So this is our goal. And of course, we are offering high quality service on 6 lines in 10 minutes frequency. So in regards to the project, it was quite a difficult task for us because our buses are not, electric buses are not so old that the usage of the batteries could be extended. So what we have to firstly find was how to implement these used batteries from Maribor buses at a bus station where the buses are charged. So in regard to the C4C project, our aim was to identify these batteries and to test them in the electric network. And what was the main advantage, of course, how to lower the cost of the energy and how to have good grid stability. So what is the situation of charging in Maribor? So we have two types of charging. One is overnight charging. The second one is opportunity or fast charging. This you can see on picture with the opportunity fast charger with 150 kilowatts. This is near the cable car, so there is a joint substation already here, and the buses here need or consume up to 600 kilowatt hours only on this charger, so that the 4 buses which are running on this line are charged. So 60 charges per day happens here. The buses here have the special LTO batteries, which is quite a technology which was, let's say, more in favor 10 years ago or 2 years ago. with a high capacity volume of charging and long lifespan. Currently, the technology in buses is going in other direction. The market says it's better to have NMC buses and charge it mostly 3 or 4 times per day. But anyway, we will keep this charging infrastructure. And of course, this batteries still has 10 years of warranty, so we will use them as much as possible. But anyway, our idea was to help these chargers with an extra energy storage system of the reused batteries, and this is the situation that you see, which is quite dispersed around the place. So the idea was to focus on charger near the substation, so there is a minimum amount of energy losses for the charger. So what we have done, we have prepared several technical feasibility checks and also requirements on the field. First was the identification of the location, the selection of batteries, and then the different procedures on identification of the right technologies. So the micro location was selected near the substation where it is more, let's say, nature, not so disturbing, and it is more near the substation, meaning that the system has less drawbacks according to the leakages of energy through the transportation. Battery type. There are 3 battery types currently available in Maribor buses. One is LFP, the second one is NMC, and the third one is LTO technology. And we said, okay, we have currently LFP batteries and NMC batteries, which are going out of the date. So we will focus on these 2 types. LTO maybe not now, but we will leave the space for the future, let's say in 10 years. Each of these batteries has its own advantages and disadvantages, and it's therefore it is applicable differently according to the needs of the storage system. So what we have battery NMC, two types of batteries at NMC which are available at Mariprom. This spec has shown that the state of the health is quite good, although the producer of the vehicles, Iveco, said you can use them as a test, and therefore we focus on these batteries and start to building the energy storage system on this battery. So the BMS, the battery management system of the battery is also included in the system. So the type of the connection to the grid is the key question. How do you connect the BMS system with the, let's say, substation? So there are 3 possible ways to connect it. We choose the parallel hybrid configuration, which is the most appropriate because the battery storage can support ranging from 0 to 100%. Is then the possible of using electricity from a cheaper tariff, and also there is a possible solutions to upgrade these with the solar power system. Of course, there are some disadvantages. For example, the power losses between the inverter and the battery. So what was needed in the field of requirements? So there was a lot of let's say planning and orienting on the solutions in regards to the selecting the right equipment to connect the batteries to the grid, and the main focus was here the converter and of course the monitoring and the management system. So this was the main 2 topics concerning the equipment. And of course, cooling. Cooling is one of the key topics because the batteries are flammable, and also other cities have shown that this is quite a challenge if the batteries starts fire. There is quite a long procedure or difficult procedure to distinguish this fire. So therefore, quite a lot focus was put on the fire protection system. We used different EU standards and norms concerning electric buses regarding the fire protection in e-buses, and used this concept also in the energy storage systems. So these were then, the system was also upgraded with additional fire protection systems regarding the fireproof of the walls, regarding the sizes of the fire extinguishing opening, the design of the shut off, and so on. So additional project was also on inverter. So inverter here was quite a challenge to include this voltage spectrum. So at the end, this inverter was chosen, which fit mostly to the integration of batteries and also to the solar systems. So in regard to operations, there are three scenarios. So the system operation in regards to the, let's say, cost reduction is maybe not so as we planned. So the cost reduction in regards to the investment, so the rate of return is, let's say, negative. So if you cannot look this through the economical feasibility, but more as a way of to prolong the lifespan, there are some benefits in the field of grid stability. This is yes. But at the end, still, this is a pilot project, quite a small energy storage system. There are only 2 types of batteries inside, so therefore the benefits are not so as would be when this storage system is full and can produce more energy capacity. So there are more technical issues. I can leave you this presentation. I will not go into the details, but maybe just for the end, the main, let's say, finding was here that the energy storage system as a standalone system is not so, let's say, economically feasible without solar power potential. So if you include solar power, then of course this energy storage system has more potential, and it is also economically feasible. So this is very short from my side.
Great, thank you so much, Mitja, and thank you for also including these considerations on the business case. I think it's very important to know how to make certain pilots and solutions financially viable. So many thanks for sharing your experience. We will now jump to the second city presenter, Adam Nemeth Zoltan from the municipality of Szeged in Hungary, who also had a pilot in the C4C project. Adam, the floor is yours.
Okay, hope you see my screen and you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Zoltan Adam Nemeth. I'm representing Szeged Transport Company, and I am the chief of public transport and railway safety at our company. And today's lecture, I'm going to talk about the pilot projects within the C4C project. First, about our company. Szeged Transport Company is a tram and trolleybus operator in Szeged. We are not the only public transport operator. We are only operating the electric public transport, which is representing around half of the volume of the public transport operation in Szeged. The other half is diesel bus operation with another company. Our company is 100% municipality owned. We are operating around 37 kilometers tram tracks and 38 kilometers of trolleybus catenary, 6 trolleybus routes and 4 tram routes, 44 trams, 55 trolleybuses. We have 2 depots and 10 power substations. So we are historically in an electric public transport operation business from Central Eastern Europe, which means that traditionally we are in a sector which is, should say, traditionally underfunded. So this way the security principles are less of a undertaking and more of a necessity. We have periods when we had relatively good projects, but we have also periods like recently when the renewal of the infrastructure or the fleet is problematic. So thus we are traditionally relying on methods which can be considered circularity economy principles. And there is a difference between diesel bus operation and electric tram or trolleybus operation. Traditionally, electric vehicles have a longer life cycle, and especially in trolleybus cases, there are several examples where part of the trolleybus operation or trolleybus electric traction equipment is reused in other vehicle body. Electric components are much more easier to maintain for a longer life cycle. Currently, we're in a situation that in the last decade, we had not sufficient new vehicles arriving to Szeged. Thus, we are relying recently on second-hand vehicles from Pilsen, from Komutov, from San Remo, and from Salzburg, and from Pardubice, from many different places. We are trying to be conscious, of course, to how to select second-hand vehicles, we can relatively make it uniform appearance and uniform electric equipment and uniform body, which is a key for longevity of the operation. So as you can see, for example, recently we are trying to acquire second-hand Solaris trolleybuses with Czech electric equipment. This is not unique from our era. Also, almost 2 decades ago, the current fleet, which is getting now very much outdated, came also second-hand from the Czech Republic. We had other projects where we can say that we are using circularity principles. 1 decade ago, we had almost a full reconstruction of the tram network, but 20% was left out, and this 20% is problematic recently. And we have done recently low-budget reconstructions where we use second-hand mainline railway rails and joints in order to and binding elements in order to renew the tracks and make it suitable for run for modern low-flow vehicles. Also, another smaller examples that we had very outdated service vehicles, which we managed to replace with also used vehicles, or for another recent project where we have acquired a second-hand underflow lathe, which we tried to reuse. Underflow lathes is very costly, but very important for low-flow vehicle operation, which we don't have, and we are trying to acquire for reasonable price, as we are again in financial constraints from recent years. Going to our C4C projects, I'm not going there. There were 2 projects from SKT, which one is connected to the infrastructure, which was the reuse of the old second-hand switches, trolleybus switches. The idea was here that we have very outdated switches in the depot, and we have also newer versions which are still working, but reaching 15-year-old operation. And there is a clear distinction between the revenue network and the depots in terms of usage. So the idea with the trolleybus switches was that we are buying new switches for the network, but these 4 switches which were exchanged are not going to thrown out, but we are going to rebuild them in the depot, exchanging even more outdated trolleybus switches, which are already almost 40 years of operation and very outdated setting system. So this was done, and the idea was basically coming also from previous projects. I mentioned before that 1 decade ago there was a big reconstruction of the tram network, but even at that time we used rails from the trams, and we have built that in the depot in order to reduce the reconstruction cost of depot, and we are aware that even these used materials are going to be perfectly suitable for the depot where there is less usage, lower safety requirement than on the revenue network. The other project was extending the life of existing tram vehicles. I think in the breakout session we can discuss a little bit about the ideas here behind, but what we did is that we have old Tatra vehicles from produced around 1990, so between 1985 and 1997. And these vehicles are still in daily operation, and we are not getting new vehicles. But in order to keep them in operation, especially these vehicles which are already over 30-year-old, the biggest issue is that we need supplies for spare parts. In basically every vehicle upkeep or maintenance can be done closely in close cooperation with the producers of the spare parts, and especially in these door systems, which are safety critical function, must meet modern regulations. The problem was with these door systems that the previous producers are basically not producing these types of systems, and we need to have electronic units to be exchanged in order to extend the life cycle of the door system, and thus extending the life cycle of the whole vehicle. Door system is just one part, but it's indicative of its problem that the modern door systems are already heavily relying electronics as software as well as hardware, and since they are safety systems, they need, in order to exchange these with another unit, is not just a simple development of an electronics, but also there is compliance with existing regulations and safety tests. So when we started to develop these new door system, we have selected per procurement company, a local company who is specialized in different high power electronics. We have developed a new technical documentation. We have already in the beginning involved the authority and the testing organization, which was in case the TÜV Rheinland company. We have designed the pilot, and finally, after the design, we have this company produced this electronic unit, which you can see on the picture. It is quite unremarkable, but the point is that this unit is replacing an older one, which can be built in the existing mechanical door unit. Again, the certification was done by TÜV, and we are right now in the process of finalizing the national regulatory approval for the usage of the full series of these electronics. And there was an extensive testing period of this unit. Right now, this is built in 2 prototype vehicles. But once we get the license, we are going to build this all of them in the door systems of the Tatra vehicles. Again, important. I have to emphasize that this is not just a simple 2-company project. There was 2 other stakeholders, the authority and the testing company involved. Okay, I think this is about our project. I'm happy to discuss in the breakout session different aspects of vehicle extending life cycles of the vehicles in public transport sector. And thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Adam. This was an excellent case and really an innovative solution to this problem that you had identified. And we will look forward to share this solution that you mentioned with the city of Budapest, which is a CCD signatory in Hungary, that maybe can make use of this specific technology that you've developed. So now we'll jump to the last city presentation, where Stephen McKean, which is a walking and cycling officer in the active travel unit from Fingal County in Ireland, will tell about their experience in refurbishing bicycles for teenagers. Stephen, to you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'll just go through a little bit of stuff about myself first. My name is Stephen McGinn. As Ciara said, I'm the walking and cycling officer with Fingal County Council. Fingal is one of the 4 Dublin local authorities, and it's one of the fastest growing areas in Ireland at the last census. It's also one of the youngest local authorities in the country. Fingal's a real mix of rural, urban, suburban, so towns and villages, and some large kind of urban clusters. So we do have kind of unique problems and unique challenges to face when it comes to active travel. So just go through a little bit of the background of the Second Spin project. So over the last decade or so, there's been a large investment in active travel infrastructure around the country. It's roughly about 1 million per day. So it's 360 million a year, 365 million a year. So there's a higher number of people who are using active travel now as their primary form of transport to work and to school and to their after school events and things like that. But one of the big issues we face is the bike parking. Bike parking remains kind of predominantly just regular Sheffield stands, regular parking. So unfortunately, bike theft still remains really high. There's around 20,000 bikes stolen per year in Ireland. Roughly, that's what the estimates say, with 70% of them being in Dublin. That's probably more than likely underreported, because even just from the Second Spin project alone, only 10% of the people that we've dealt with on this project have actually reported their bike stolen when it's been stolen. And nearly all of the feedback is that there's a lack of safe and secure bike parking. That's the main reason. But also we're seeing that bike parking is kind of badly placed as well. Legacy issues, it was placed around the back of shopping centres, at the back of car parks. And then the other problem that we've seen is we're dealing with teenagers here, and most of them didn't have their bike locked. So, there's that as well. What we have found, though, is that teens are disproportionately affected by bike theft. So most teenagers have low income or no income. So their own bike being stolen can really disproportionately affect them. From the Second Spin project alone, 80% of the kids that we've worked with, they didn't intend to buy a new bike after their other one was stolen. And when their bike gets taken, they tend to go back to less sustainable forms of transport. So they rely really heavily on, their parents giving them lifts, mom and dad's taxi. And then the other reason why we wanted to promote a project like this was just to promote the circular economy as well. So we all know we live in a world where new is seen as better and everything has to be immediate and shiny and brand new. So we're aiming to challenge that perception and show that used doesn't mean second best or worst, you know. So what is the Second Spin project? I suppose it's a circular economy project at its heart. It aims to replace teenagers' bikes that have been stolen with refurbished second-hand bikes. It's as simple as it sounds, and that's the beauty of it. So like, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. We've partnered with a local social enterprise called the Rediscovery Centre. They're based in Ballymun in North Dublin. They're a great organisation. I'll talk a little bit about them in the next slide. But basically what happens is when a teenager is the victim of bike theft, they just contact us, the local authority, through an online form. They give us all their details in relation to the type of bike it was. And we get details then just on, like, you know, where it was locked, or if it wasn't locked, did they report it stolen? That just helps us to gather all the data. What we do then is we pass the information on the stolen bike onto the Rediscovery Centre, and they go then to source a replacement. They'll find we have recycling centres around Fingal, and we have recycling depots where bikes get abandoned or bikes get left, and the Rediscovery Centre will go to them. They'll take bikes that they can repair, and they'll take bikes that they can't repair, and they'll strip them for parts. And once we identify the bike that's suitable, we repair it, refurbish it, and deliver it. And so, like I said, it's embedded in the principles of the circular economy, where we have bikes that can't be refurbished, we strip them for parts, and we use what's needed. There's also an avenue open there to recipients as well, that if they can redonate the second spin bike that they've gotten, if their circumstances change and they don't need it anymore. And so again, you can see like refurbished bikes getting a third and fourth lease of life. As for the project then, as part of the project then, sorry, we give them a new lock too. And we explain to them that locking the bike is probably a good thing to do, because that is important. And then just from the data side of it as well, so one of the key elements for the local authority, so for us in Fingal, is to gather the data on where bike theft is proving more prevalent. And this will help us to identify kind of smarter solutions to try and tackle that. And then we'll also feed this information back to the local, the Gardaí, the local police service here, which will hopefully increase some vigilance in the location. So I just want to speak a little bit about our partner, the Rediscovery Centre. Like I said, they're a social enterprise based in Ballymun in North Dublin. Their mission really is to lead Ireland's transition to a circular economy and a sustainable future. So they want to create a fair and inclusive society that thrives within the boundaries of our natural resources. They have 5 kind of main goals to help them achieve that. They want to educate, they need to collaborate, they advocate, they demonstrate, and that all leads to them thriving. They work with everything from furniture, fashion, they recycle paint, musical instruments, bikes. So they're the natural partners for us on this project. And also we've learned so much from them. So we really want to make sure that we can help them achieve their organizational goals, but we also want to make ourselves a greener and more climate conscious local authority. And that's a really important part of the project. So just, I suppose, the impact so far. We launched the scheme back in October 2025. Since then, we've worked with 10 teenagers to get them back cycling. We actually have two new applicants in over the weekend, so it will be 12 by the end of the week. So to get them back cycling with a refurbished bike. And just so some of the feedback we've gotten so far, just some quotes here from some of the teens. So, like, I'm very grateful for the bike that I've received from this project. It's helped me to stay cycling. I never realised how much I cycled until my bike was gone. The refurbished bike has been so helpful. The bike allows me to go to school and my sports on my own again. So I think from the participant's point of view, the bike is about maintaining independence, but it's also helping teens to identify active travel as their primary source of transport rather than like just a bike. And then for us in Fingal, we've already identified, even from those 10 applications so far, we've already identified 2 hotspots for theft. And what we've done is we've taken action to rectify that. So we've removed the parking that was in those locations. It was back at the back of buildings, and we've taken it to the front of the building, moved it onto the main road. There's far better visibility there. There's increased footfall. There's really good passive surveillance. And since since that's been installed there about a month ago, we haven't had any instances of theft from there. Whereas before that, 3 of the bikes that have been involved in the project so far were stolen from that space. So you can see what it means to the teens from the quotes, like to get their new refurbished bike. But you can also see what it means for the local authority. So for Fingal, that we can actually identify issues that are within the community and help to resolve them. And it's data led, so it's kind of you've got more than anecdotal evidence to back it up. So just for the next steps, I suppose, as you see here in the picture, this is one of our refurbished bikes. It looks brand new. That was taken out of a skip in North Dublin. Everything about it was fine, apart from the fact that there was no tires on it. The handlebars were busted and the chain needed to be replaced. But it's brand new there now. All those parts on that bike are recycled, and it looks great. It looks brilliant. So just from the next steps, we want to continue to promote the scheme. One of the hardest things in any local authority scheme is to get the word out there. So we'll keep using our various social media channels, our website, that kind of stuff. But we're also looking to partner with Feroga, who are the youth services in Fingal, and they work with teens specifically. So we're hoping to partner with them, and that'll help us to raise the profile. And we're also looking at how we can scale it. So we know that teenagers have low or no income, but that's also the case for many adults who are working. They might have low income, or they might be relying on social welfare. The bike might be their primary source of travel, and if it gets taken, well, it's probably not the highest priority to replace it. So we want to try and help those people as well. And we want to identify advancements as well then in bike security. So we're looking at ways to enhance bike security at Sheffield stands. We're looking at all the innovative technologies that are around Europe to see can we help test out enhanced security for locking your bike in public places. And then the last thing we want to do is we just want to improve our own public facilities. So as part of the project, we're looking at how improving the way we install our own public parking. So we want to highlight the commonalities between locations where theft is high, so we can put things in to mitigate against that at design stage. So that's things like high footfall, clear sight lines, passive surveillance, increased security, that type of stuff. So that's where we're at so far. So thanks very much for listening, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. This was a great presentation and a great example of using circular economy to solve a social problem. We look forward to hear about your upscaling efforts and how this goes. And now we will move on to the more interactive part of this webinar, which is where you will be joining breakout rooms. Let me share my screen so that it's a bit easier. And in these breakout rooms, you will have a chance to discuss with the various speakers about more specifically your experience in one or the other dimension of circular economy applied to the public transport sector. I'm going to be opening the rooms now. You will see the first room is on circular energy management, and Mitya will be joining this room, the speaker from Maribor. And then in the second room, which is the extending the life of public transport vehicles and infrastructure, there will be Adam, the speaker from Szeged, and Stephen from Fingal County will join the third room. So you should be free to join the breakouts freely. Welcome back, everyone. So I hope the discussions in the breakout rooms were interesting for you. And now in the last 5 minutes, I would like to give the floor to the facilitators of the rooms to have a quick rundown of the insights of what has been discussed, and then we'll wrap up the event. So starting with room 1, Mitya, if you can hear us. Would you mind sharing what was discussed in your breakout room? Mitya, I know that you were experiencing some technical issues, so perhaps I will pass the floor to my colleague Nestor for a quick highlight.
Of course. Yeah, sorry, we were in the middle of a very interesting conversation. But we discussed many different aspects. So we discussed the regulatory barriers of repurposing end-of-life batteries into energy storage systems, some of them very mundane problems, like transportation regulations that we need to follow. And of course, these are not always on the radar, but are things that need to be taken into account. Then we also discussed briefly about the supply chain of the sector and the origin and the location of the different components, and how these are many times, and especially the batteries, coming from overseas, so from China in this case, and how these are like very critical value chains, especially with the push towards resilience and economic resilience in Europe. So why, and just seeing how circularity is very important here as well in this sector, and it's something that it's not being maybe systematically addressed in the transportation sector. And like the EIB, for example, the European Investment Bank also mentioned some initiatives and conversations that they have been involved in, also with examples from companies, for example, the SNCF in France, trying to move into circularity, but it's still an untapped opportunity within the public transport sector, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nestor. Like, it sounds like a very all-encompassing kind of discussion, so happy to hear. And now to hear from the room too. Adam. You're muted, Adam.
Yes. Okay. Hopefully you hear me. I would say in the discussion room too, we were just discussing that in order to put circular economic principles in practice. On one hand, there were vehicle revolutions in the last decades, but it seems to be over. So right now, if you have, for example, in terms of a bus service, you have an electric, low energy consumption, low floor accessible vehicle with air conditioning. Probably in 20 years, there's not going to be any more new criteria which you would really want to fulfill. Probably you want to have a better design and a sleek vehicle, but there is no new thing which public transport wants to really fulfill, which means that it's really the question of these vehicles, whether they are able to survive these longs. And there is a possibility, but there is always this change that there is the municipalities ordering the service, there is the public transport companies doing the service, and of course the industry who is serving the public transport company. And if you want to have a reliable public transport service in the long run, the public transport company and the industry has to go hand in hand, because only the industry can provide these expertise for their vehicles, how to keep them in service for decades. And right now we see that this incentive is very much missing. So the public transport companies wants to have reliable service, and the industry wants to basically sell new vehicles. These two very much in matching, but of course this is the exact point that this is not fulfilling the circularity principles, and it's expensive. So the point is that how can you have incentives for these two stakeholders who have to go hand in hand if we want to have extension of the life cycle of basically in vehicles.
I understand. Thank you very much, Adam. Like, sounds very interesting, and sorry to cut it short. Stephen, I will now pass it to you. We are running out of time, so
I'll keep it quick. Yeah, we had a good conversation around just the commonalities, I suppose, about the uptick in cycling and the efforts of cities and municipalities to promote cycling. But with that, then came the increase in theft, and it seems to be a common issue around lots of different cities. We also spoke then a little bit about the barriers and the challenges that you have in doing a scheme like, say, something like Second Spin or replacing bicycles. Through the police services and their kind of regulatory stumbling blocks that you might meet there. We spoke about the different stakeholders as well that you kind of need to try and engage with, And then we spoke a good bit about the bigger picture, that it's more than just replacing bikes. We spoke about that a bit as well, and just the importance then for design and trying to get the design bit right when you're doing bike parking in the first place, to try and mitigate some of the issues around theft. So it was a really good conversation, and something that we're going to try and follow up with each other on. So yeah, really good.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Stephen, for sharing this. And thank you all for participating. I will be very brief now in this wrap up because we are already over time. But before we close off, I just wanted to mention a few of the upcoming opportunities and events that you might find interesting. My colleague Erika will now post the links in the chat. So just for you to know, the CCRI Twinning Program, which is an opportunity for you to be matched with other cities and regions which are experiencing your same challenges or want to work on the same things, is still open. So you can apply through the link in the chat. And also you can apply for the EIB C3 advisory services for developing circular strategies, actions, or projects. Like, there is different levels, and there's a lot of information there, but feel free to reach out if you have more questions about it. Also regarding the work that the capital region of Denmark, together with Ile-de-France, Amsterdam, and other front runner cities have been doing for this call for action on circular construction, you can contribute and join this group of front runners regarding the circular construction in light of the upcoming Circular Economy Act. And you can do so again by the link in the chat. And also the Commission has launched an evaluation for the Single-Use Plastics Directive. And ICLEI is organizing to submit a joint response through understanding the situation and the feedback from the CCD signatories. So feel free to provide your experience through the link. And then looking at upcoming events that might be of interest to you, there is a Circular City stand-up on keeping textiles in use. This is an event that is invitation only, organized by ICLEI World Secretariat together with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And the next one will be on the 11th of March. If you would like to attend, feel free to reach out to the address in the chat. And the Circular Invest Readiness Network, they're also going to be organizing a networking session on the 25th of February. And this is open, so you can register to participate. So just to summarize in this last minute, if you want to listen to the recording or share this with some of your colleagues, it will be uploaded on the CCD website on the webinars page soon. If you want to provide feedback to this webinar and also suggest topics for future webinars, feel free to do so by filling in the form in the chat. And if you want to stay up to date with the upcoming events and opportunities, but also showcase what is happening in your city, or if there is anything that you would like to promote, feel free to use the content contribution form for the next CCD monthly email, which is planned on the 3rd of March 2026. So I thank you all for your attention. I would like to thank the speakers and the C4C project also for supporting the organization of this webinar. And I wish you all a nice afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.